Let's talk about bankruptcy. A fresh start's closer than you see. It rebuilds lives and brings back smiles. This is the Bankruptcy Files.
Hi, Bankruptcy Buddies. Welcome to the Bankruptcy Files. I'm Lauren Clark, your host, who is a South Carolina attorney. We're going to be talking about bankruptcy today with Michael Moody, a Florida, Tallahassee-based attorney. He does consumer bankruptcy, debts for an individual. He also does non-consumer bankruptcy. That's going to be business cases. Welcome to the Bankruptcy Files, Michael.
Hey, Lauren. Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. I like what you're doing, spreading the good news of bankruptcy.
Yeah, it's not scary. I know it's really scary to call us and talk to us, but to me, it's like putting a puzzle together. It's fun. I like what we do. So I have a few questions that I ask every guest. The first one is, why do you enjoy practicing bankruptcy?
Great question. I recently had the chance to take my family to Philadelphia. We visited Independence Hall, and it dawned on me the founding fathers included the bankruptcy clause in the Constitution. The concept was that it helps to stimulate the economy, to give people a fresh start, and to make sure the honest but unfortunate debtor can add to the economy. So everything that we do every day helping individuals is beneficial to the country and is beneficial to relieving debts, which also relieves stress. It saves relationships, saves lives, what we do. So I love doing it every day.
It's such a unique area.
There's a lot that goes into the concept of filing a bankruptcy. People wait too long or pay a lot that they could have avoided if they had looked for help sooner. But there's a tremendously large amount of considerations that go into deciding to do a bankruptcy. And in a lot of cases, it's the right move. You can get rid of your debt while at the same time not getting taxable cancellation and indebtedness. It counts as income and it improves your credit. People don't understand that. The moment you file, your credit report immediately reflects that you owe zero. And usually you can get through a bankruptcy and at least limit those problems to something manageable in a quick and easy process. Yeah.
Right. There's so many reasons I love bankruptcy, but those are definitely some of the reasons. So what geographical areas do you serve?
Sure. We are located in the Northern District of Florida. And we practice in Tallahassee, where I live, but we also do cases in Panama City, Pensacola, Gainesville, and I also do business bankruptcy cases. I love Subchapter 5, which is a whole different topic, but
and that's really neat. So this is 6 years old. It still feels very new to me, but this was in 2020, if I'm remembering correctly, that Subchapter 5s came out.
Absolutely. And they've only really been used the last few years. During COVID, a lot of collection activity stopped, so there wasn't a whole bunch of need for Chapter 11s, but now there are. And there are merchant cash advance loans that businesses find themselves taking out. And once you have one, they start debiting your account. You usually have to get another to cover the first one, and you end up in this cash problem.
Oh, yeah. These merchant cash advance loans, these are a special kind of quote unquote debt. And how it's treated is very jurisdiction specific.
Yeah, actually, I'm writing a book on sub fives and how to use them correctly. And somebody described it, it doesn't sound good for the industry, but it's like, once you've taken one, you've taken a loan out from the mob, and they're going to basically keep taking from you until you file a Chapter 11. I know.
Well, I'm hoping most of the listeners here aren't borrowing loans from the mob. I've never filed bankruptcy on a mob debt. I don't know how that one would go either.
You discharge their debt, they discharge you.
Yeah. Nope, never seen a mob debt in my bankruptcies. It's so funny. South Carolina, we are one district. We have one whole district for our state. So it's always interesting to see the states have multiple districts. How many districts are in Florida?
So we have 3. We have the Northern, Middle, and Southern District. And for Chapter 11 cases, we serve the whole state. We also do a little bit of work with colleagues up in Delaware and Pennsylvania. For our consumer debtor work, it's mostly in the Northern District of Florida. And I know your listeners know that bankruptcy is a federal remedy, but the law that's applied in bankruptcy is state law. It is very different by jurisdiction. The law in South Carolina is different from the law in Florida.
Okay, and here's a fun little tidbit. Florida tidbit for the bankruptcy buddies, O.J. Simpson. He moved to Florida And there was one very specific reason. It was that houses in Florida are 100% protected from judgment creditors. So even though the glove don't fit, you must acquit. He did have civil judgment against him. So that civil judgment creditor, he wanted to make sure his house was safe. And so I hear that's why he went to Florida.
Right. And for your viewers that are thinking of moving to Florida with a civil judgment, there are also limitations on how much time you have to be here before that exemption is available to be used. It gets very complicated when you're looking at which states' exemptions to apply. 730 rule, which gets super complicated. But
No, we don't
Florida,
have to get into that. This is why you talk to attorneys, bankruptcy buddies, because there's things that I have to go back to the code and look up every time I do it.
also complicated when you can use Florida exemptions. If you move to Georgia from Florida and you'd almost immediately file bankruptcy, the default rule would be you'd have to file your bankruptcy in Georgia using Florida exemptions. But Florida doesn't allow our exemptions to be used extraterritorially. So you have to know what to do in that situation. But it gets incredibly
I have a whole
complicated.
chart I go to refer back when it comes to exemption planning. So when a potential client schedules a consult with you, last question, what would they expect? They're going to be afraid. Don't be afraid. It's Michael. He's very nice. But what should they expect when they call? And what should they expect from the consult?
Sure, absolutely. I have a really good team that we've trained over the years. Typically, our intake people will take a message and our specialist will call you back and learn the details of what you're going through. If it fits into what we're doing, then I would schedule a meeting with you directly, either on the phone, in person, or on a video. And we would identify exactly what we can do with you. And then we go from there to try to execute what we think you need.
Since 2020, the movement into virtual spaces, I'm so excited about that. I used to require in-person meetings, but for someone to have to take off work and to come and drive and park in a bankruptcy attorney's office, that can be a lot more stressful. People are loving online, and I am too.
It's surprising how few people actually want to meet in person. They want the right information and they want to identify what they should be doing, and then for
Right.
us to begin executing on it. We do have some clients that like to meet in person. I like to meet
Yeah.
with our business clients that have very complicated issues. I like to meet in person and make sure we are constantly meeting in person to keep those cases on track. I guess the pandemic back in the day really opened the world's eyes to Zoom, and a lot of good came out of that.
Well, that's great. And I will put Michael's information in the show notes for his office. So anybody in the northern area of Florida, individuals, businesses, you do of counsel. So you get as a pro hoc vice admission into areas like Delaware.
Yes. Yeah. I have some good colleague friends that we love
Yeah.
working together. So if there's cases that are in other locations, we've got a network of people that we tend to work with.
So give him a call and see if there's something he can help you with, help teach you about your situation. I think that's the most important thing about a consultation is what the potential client learns. And you see the relief just from talking to them and them knowing what their rights are.
We sense that almost every day. People come into our office fearful. They don't know what their options are. And generally, people leave our consultations feeling relief already because we're able to say, like, here's definitively how to get out of your conundrum, or it's going to be a process, but here's what the steps we need to take to put you on the right track. And just having that, puts people's mind at ease and gets them started in the right direction.
Yeah. So the topic you want to talk about today, I'm very excited about AI. So go ahead, you get us started. Let's talk about AI and bankruptcy.
So I'm a fan of AI. The models are getting to be very good. It's a little bit like the early 90s in the sense of what individuals can create. In my practice right now, I have 5-10 different tools that I use. In the future, those can be built into one tool that's super specialized for what I do. And I'm extremely optimistic about AI. At the same time, people that are looking to file bankruptcy need to understand what it is and what it isn't, at least
I
right
think
now.
you're very generous to say the 90s because where AI is in my mind, my opinion, it's like we just invented a wheel back in the Stone Age. No, now we have a wheelbarrow. We're not quite where we're driving a car yet, but it needs some work.
I don't disagree, but I think like in the early 90s, those people that knew how to work coding and the internet before people like me could do things that you couldn't do before. And I definitely feel like we're kind of in a similar place. Doesn't mean it's a magic bullet. It's going to solve everybody's issues. And that's part of the risk or things that we're seeing in case law, getting ready to give a speech to a bunch of lawyers about how to stay protected and how to try to protect your clients who are trying to use AI. So yeah.
Well, and if you want to touch on a few of those points, I will try to layperson interpret it.
AI is great for gathering information. There are risks when clients start oversharing details to large language models.
There's been a lot of discussion about that in our bankruptcy attorney community. For example, how to warn clients. And it's because some of the case law, which is when a court makes a decision on something, that becomes the law. That becomes binding on future cases with similar facts. So the confidentiality.
Yes. And there were two opinions recently on the same day, and they came out with opposite conclusions. And one of them basically said that if a client shares confidential details with that large language model, then it completely waives the privilege, and whatever you've shared is discoverable. And that's terrifying as a lawyer looking at what my clients might have put into AI about their predicament.
But then again, in discovery in a 341 meeting, they can ask anything anyway.
Right. There's no telling what the future will look like. Will trustees be able to pull up your AI search results and find out the questions that you asked that you maybe should have talked to an attorney about instead? So there are limits there. I mean, I think that big lawyers and law firms are using AI, trying to use AI ethically and responsibly, but it requires enterprise level forethought. The future, at least the way I see it, is probably people running large language models locally on servers they own, but that's extremely expensive.
You're talking about is basically having your AI, it's on your own, we'll just say computer for simplicity, but only you can access it. This isn't something that somebody goes to the web and talks to ChatGPT about. This is your own personal ChatGPT built on your own computer.
I think
Very, very simplified.
right. And so it'd be a large language model that you could have running in a server in your firm, or running your software scripts, doing with your data what you want, but never sharing it outside of the four corners of your law firm, and fully protected and backed up in a way that actually works and accomplishes the result.
Now,
we're a long way off from people being able to just generally afford that. That's not something you can just walk out into Best Buy and pick up on a reasonable budget.
and that addresses the confidentiality of it. It doesn't address necessarily the trustworthiness of the result.
Correct. And one way to think about it is that AI in general is a useful tool in the hands of a skilled practitioner.
Double check its work.
Correct. And know when it's right and when it's wrong. When I use it, it's sometimes beautiful. It's wonderful for brainstorming ideas, but it'll miss a key issue. And if I didn't have 10,000 hours plus of experience in bankruptcy, I wouldn't know to think of something. The risk is for the common viewer who's contemplating, do I need bankruptcy? How do I figure out what I need? My advice still is to go to the lawyer and not the AI. There's a whole lot of other risks too that you won't recognize when AI is not telling you the truth, because you don't know all the case law that we've been studying for years and years and years, and when
that
to pick
keeps
up the
popping
issue.
up, even like the newest stuff, because bankruptcy law is constantly changing. And the place that you get advice about bankruptcy from is calling an attorney. Don't take it from us on this podcast. This is in the disclaimer. We cannot give you legal advice. I could not analyze a case from Florida. I'm not licensed there. And the rules are very different. You're saying state to state, like with what property is protected, even court to court. We have local rules specific to the courthouses. Sometimes you learn from experience just working with different trustees. Now, AI, my experience with AI in bankruptcy, I have a couple of them. I did see on Facebook this Why pay an attorney $500 when you can talk to this chatbot for free? So I go and click on it and I give it the simplest facts. And it's saying it's going to do this faster than a lawyer and give you accurate information. And it asks what state I'm in and it tells me its information. It's current through that day. I give it the most simple facts. Don't have any money, don't have any assets, have some unsecured debt, which it's something I could get a good idea about in just a matter of minutes. I would still want to ask more questions about transfers and all of these ins and outs of bankruptcy, gifts, under the table income, which yes, bankruptcy buddies, that is income. But it gave me an answer and it was wrong. And it gave me some stuff that was right a while ago. It was out of date. And it gave me some stuff that was just completely wrong. And I said, all right, I'm an attorney licensed in this area and this is wrong. And then the chatbot wanted $20 to keep talking to me.
Yeah. It is confident when it's wrong too. It'll throw a case out there and make it sound, even to a lawyer, make it sound great. You're like, oh, that's the case I need. And then you go and look it up and it absolutely doesn't exist. And that's where a lot of lawyers have gotten in trouble, not double checking.
Hopefully not a lot of them. I want to say most of us understand how complicated the law is, why we have to go through 3 years of school to practice it and be licensed by a board. I don't even cite things out of opinions without checking the citation first, out of judicial opinion.
Just one example, over the weekend, I was working on a field guide of Subchapter 5 bankruptcy. Hopefully be able to hand the clients to remind them of the rules of the road and the requirements we need for confirmation. In the course of one discussion with a wonderful tool that I find to be very helpful, it told me the debt limit for a Subchapter 5 was $7 million. And that was a bill that was introduced in Congress in March, but has not yet been passed or approved. And I said, it's not 7, it's still 3.424 million.
So bankruptcy buddies, you heard it here first. If you have watched Schoolhouse Rock, how a bill becomes a law, you're already smarter than AI.
And so it confidently said that I was wrong and that it was 7, and then it figured out it wasn't 7, and it told me it was 3.05 million. And I said, it's not 3.05 million. These numbers are adjusted annually. Every number in the bankruptcy code is now 3.424 million. And it came back and it said, this is crazy. I've been wrong twice in the same conversation. I apologize to you. You're right. It's 3.424 million. So if I didn't have a lot of experience in sub fives, I wouldn't know. I would say, well, I guess the limit's now 7 million.
I mean, I have an example. I was trying to get it to calculate interest on a past due tax debt, and I let the chatbot know when the return was filed, what was owed on the return, if an extension was filed. I let them know what the interest rate was for that tax period. It couldn't calculate it. It's like, I can't do that complex math. So then I started going through step by step to teach it how to do this compound interest calculation. And after about 20 minutes, I was like, why am I doing this? I went back to my spreadsheet. 5 minutes later, I had the answers.
Yeah.
In Excel.
Yeah. And I'm fascinated with it. It's great. But the ramifications of being wrong in bankruptcy law are significant. So you want to make sure you're talking to somebody that has the experience to guide you along the way. Because
here's an example I give. I was asking AI to make a dinner menu for the week and then give me a grocery list. And one of the items it gave was a Philly cheesesteak. And when I looked at the ingredients, it was missing any sort of steak, any sort of even roast beef. There was nothing on there to make this Philly cheesesteak, which it had given me as a menu item and a recipe for. In bankruptcy, if you're missing the meat off of your petition, if you didn't list that asset or that income or its equitable interest, then you could be looking at jail time. Up to 20 years for bankruptcy fraud. So look, if I go to the grocery store and I don't buy the lunch meat, okay, fine. Grilled cheese sandwiches for everybody. But in bankruptcy, bread and water in jail.
Unfortunately, I've seen cases be prosecuted for bankruptcy crimes and not, thankfully for my client, knock on wood, but I've been in cases where I've uncovered fake tax returns that somebody's thought they could get away with telling the court they were real. And that wasn't that difficult to prove. That's not where you want to be.
So there's things that maybe we'll risk it with. Maybe I'll ask it to create a YouTube thumbnail for this episode. If I end up with an extra thumb, it's not going to hurt anything. Although I don't even trust it for that. I go back to Canva. But in bankruptcy, you have that extra thumb, you're going to have a material misstatement. you're going to have problems. And with bankruptcy, like you said, as practitioners, we know what the answer should be. So if we get it to run a problem, we can spot the minefield. We can spot where it's going to blow up and where it got it wrong. In my experience, it just takes me more time to go back and double check what AI is doing than to do it myself. Now, I haven't done it a lot with the law. I do it a lot with podcasts, even just like write a description here. And I'm like, wait a minute, this was not at all in the episode. Or you spelled this person's name wrong on my reality TV podcast. It's spelled another way. And then it will argue with me. And I'm like, no, go to TLC's website. It's spelled a different way. Just my experience with it in podcasting I'm not ready to incorporate it into an area where my clients are facing jail time. I'm too cautious about that right now. I'm not saying it's not cool and it's not really fun to make pictures and get ideas for songs and
Everybody's using it. It's not one of these things where if I say to you, don't ever use AI to ask you about anything, you're not going to listen to me. But I think that the research shows that like 40 some odd percent of law firms use AI, but even amongst research of how many practitioners have used it, it's like 75, 85 or higher. So there's a shadow market where even if your law firm isn't using it, somebody's going home and using it for one reason or the other. So the takeaways as a consumer I would have is if you're going to use it, ask it generically, hypothetically. Don't put your own information or financials, social security number, personal
right.
data, actual situation. I wouldn't recommend using it to ask legal advice because it's discoverable. You've waived with privilege and whatever that conversation is potentially could be discovered. I'm not admitting it's discoverable, but that is an argument in some cases.
And my concern is it's just not,
Yeah.
it did not go to law school. It has not been licensed by a bar. There are no repercussions for AI if it's wrong, at least at this point. Whereas attorneys, we are barred, we're held to ethical standards. So it's different. Now, I can think of another bad use of it. I could swear that I had one client sending me questions that they had AI generate and then sending me responses that they had AI generate because I kept asking the same question to further gauge the situation, to examine what the answer might be. And I wasn't getting an answer. And it was the way it was worded. It seemed very much like AI didn't understand and it was trying to maybe give the answer that my client wanted. So maybe my questions weren't relevant to it. I don't know. But when you're talking to your attorney, don't have ChatGPT as the middleman. Just talk to us.
Yeah.
It will take a lot less time and be so much more helpful for everybody.
Yeah. And I think that's the surprising thing is just realizing how confident and great things can sound and then how wrong they can be at the same time. It's an interesting time to be alive with all these developments. I mean, the self-driving vehicles and humanoid robots and
Yeah.
all of these things that I think are only going to improve and get better. But if you're facing a financial crisis or a predicament, advice is to call Lauren, call me if you're in the Northern District of Florida. There's a bunch of other people that we could recommend wherever you are.
I say just call somebody local to
Absolutely.
your area. I'm more cautious about bigger companies that call me later on and ask if I can fill in for them because they don't have an attorney representing anybody in that area. But yeah, just my colleagues in the Charleston, South Carolina area, wonderful. Wonderful. We have a great bankruptcy bar.
Yeah. And
You'll find the right one. Find the right fit.
yeah. I go to bankruptcy bar conferences of consumer bankruptcy lawyers, and everybody in the room has different knowledge than I have about their particular state, their nuances of how their trustees operate, the nuances of what their judges expect. And all of that is hyper specialized local knowledge that is, you have to be right about the law. You have to be accurate. You have to reveal the assets, but you have to know the practice. And
You need to know how to apply it. And the 342 notice, I want to do a few episodes on that. I think that will be a long episode, but it tells you bankruptcy is one of the most technically difficult areas of law. And that being said, I'm just not quite where we need to be with AI for me to trust it If I did use it, I would because I double check everything it even says for the podcast. Like last week on my reality TV podcast, it was saying Lauren lost her dog Steve, and I typed back. I was like, okay, in the description you said Steve. My dog's name is Teddy. And then it said, I'm sorry, and it gave me a new description, and I still lost Steve. So I don't know who you are, Steve, but already.
Well, we feel for your loss of Teddy, and I appreciate what you're doing, spreading the good news and getting the word out. There is the bankruptcy bar in general is a bunch of wonderful people. Typically, everybody feels the same way. We're in the business of helping you to get a fresh start, to helping you to discharge the things that are weighing you down financially. And
I'm always like, I'm not in the business of like making a bunch of money like a personal injury attorney. I'm in this because it feels good to help people.
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and you don't make a whole lot of money in the bankruptcy business, but you are doing good, helpful work.
When that chatbot said, don't pay your attorney $500 an hour, I was like, consumer bankruptcy lawyers, which ones of you are making that?
Yeah, what the consumer bankruptcy side doesn't make a whole lot, but it helps, and we're helping people. So that's why
And
we're doing
business cases are, even in a consumer case with self-employment income, it's just infinitely more complex, having to value the business, having to figure out the revenue and just everything. Knowing
Yeah.
that a website is an asset, it's an intellectual property asset that can be sold.
Yeah, and helping now with the Subchapter 5, a big part of it is projecting the business's disposable income and
Yeah.
then, confirming a plan that sounds a little bit like a Chapter 13. It's very complicated, but it's rewarding too, because I've got, everywhere I look, if it's an airline, if it's a sausage manufacturer, if it's a
Yeah.
hotel, I've got somebody that I've touched in the business with a professional connection in the case. So, yep.
That's so awesome.
Bankruptcy touches more areas of law than any other because everything
Yeah.
gets brought in. If you have a dispute and a marital dispute and you have property,
Family law, domestic support obligations. We talked about this some in our last podcast, just real estate, contract law. You have to know so many different areas. One of the questions is, do you have the right to sue? So I have to know at least enough to say, hey, my spidey senses are up from what I've learned in law school. You need to go talk to this type of lawyer.
is it an asset if you recover on a disability litigation claim? And that differs by jurisdiction and
Right.
under what law you recovered. It's wonderfully complicated. That's one of the reasons I love the bankruptcy area.
It's like a puzzle.
Yeah, it's just very intellectually stimulating, but
Absolutely.
it certainly is territory that you need to vet with a local professional.
Any of the bankruptcy buddies that listen to my reality TV podcast are like, oh my gosh, Lauren does things that are intellectually stimulating. We would have never thought. You guys, I've got my smart moments. Is there anything that you want to add? Anything that you want to get out to consumers, businesses, people struggling with debt?
Look at calling a professional sooner than later. Part of the research I did over the weekend is the cost of the dollars that you think you're saving by not calling a lawyer. In reality, it could be that you're giving away good money that could be exempted and put into a retirement account one day by delaying your decision and paying the minimums on your credit cards.
And you're talking about putting the money into a retirement account, which is awesome. That is that reverse capitalization. Instead of you paying interest and paying interest on interest, the retirement accounts, Dave Ramsey, I don't love everything he does. He has a calculator on his website. You can see how your money will earn money. So retirement is so important. But I think in bankruptcy, more than that, they're throwing money at interest. They've probably paid back what they've borrowed by the time they see us. In bankruptcy, it really is you're spending more by avoiding talking to an attorney. And when
Yeah.
people spend their retirement accounts, which are protected before they come and see us, that's a
Yeah.
pain. That's a pain in my heart.
Yeah, same thing
Makes
with
me
your
sick.
home equity. If you're taking HELOCs to pay credit cards, you probably need to stop and talk to a bankruptcy lawyer.
My stomach literally sinks when those situations come in and I'm like, I could have saved you so much money. And
Yeah.
you can't undo it. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. AI, we're not saying it's a bad thing. I think it's fun. I like doing all kinds of stuff with it. But I'm not trusting it with bankruptcy. And you're going to make your own decisions. But as always, make sure you talk to a local bankruptcy professional about your situation. That's the only person that is licensed to and can give you advice. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me join, Lauren. Have a good day.
Anytime. Thanks, Michael, for coming on. All right, everyone, have a great week, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Disclaimer, the Bankruptcy Files does not provide legal advice. Commentary on this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, including discussions of public bankruptcy cases and online content. Listeners should consult a qualified local attorney. Interacting with this podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship. Hosts and guests speak in their personal capacities. The Bankruptcy Files is not affiliated with any employers or law firms and is not a debt relief agency or provider of legal services.